Hey everyone, welcome to my review of the Deepcool Assassin CPU cooler. Deepcool has been around for a long time, and more recently they've started making products that are more gamer or enthusiast oriented. They've started a product line called Gamer Storm, and this is their first CPU cooler in that product line. It has a twin tower design, so it's a design we've seen a lot of times previously, but it only takes small changes and tweaks to improve the performance of the design. So I'm looking forward to doing some testing and seeing how it will stand up against the competition. So let's start by taking a look around the packaging. There's not much to see around the box. There is some specifications of the included fans on the back of the box. It comes well packaged. There's 3 separate boxes, and in the center of all of the packaging is the cooler itself, so it's very well protected. Moving on to a look at what's in the box. We have an installation guide, a whole lot of mounting components, some thermal paste, 2 different fans, a 120mm and a 140mm fan, and of course the cooler itself. So now taking a look at the fans. They're black and dark green. It's an interesting choice of colors, not a color scheme I see used a whole lot, but it's good to see something different. The specifications of the fans: the 120mm fan is 1200 RPM, 52.35 CFM and 23.2 decibels. The 140mm fan is PWM, 700 to 1400 RPM, 80.28 CFM, 18.2 to 32 decibels, and both fans have a hydro bearing. So the specifications are good. This config is going to be silent, and I always go for silence in my builds, but with a cooler like this, I think that a wider RPM range would have been good just to get as much performance out of this cooler as possible. And it would be good to see 2 PWM fans with a very similar RPM range and specifications. That way maximum performance can be achieved. So the fans are fairly standard, although there is a few things about them that stands out. The frames are made from a soft plastic. They're flexible and also soft to touch. It almost feels like a hard rubber. So this is obviously to prevent vibration, and I think this is a great idea to make the entire frame anti-vibration instead of adding extra pieces of rubber. And you can see around the inside of the frame there's a hard plastic insert to stop the frame from flexing, because that's how soft the frame actually is. The fan blades are made from a very hard plastic, so there's minimal flex, which is definitely a good thing to help with performance. There's 9 fan blades, and the fan blades are a good shape and size, fairly standard. There is some raised sections around the inside of the blades, but I think they're there more for aesthetics than anything else. So these fans have nice long cables at 400mm. You can see that the wires are black and grey, so they blend in nicely. The cables are sleeved, and it's the same sleeving you see on Noctua fans. It's a dense weave material with a kind of plastic coating. The problem with this sleeving is it doesn't stretch at all, so it almost immediately comes out of the heat shrink, which just makes a mess. Looking at the 140mm fan, you can see both fans have the same aesthetics. The mounting holes on this fan are actually at 120mm, but the blades are the size of a 140mm fan. You can see that the blades come outside of the frame. This is so that the fan will fit on the cooler, and also so that both fans can use the same mounting system. So this fan has really been designed for this cooler. Now personally, I think that the chrome centers take from the aesthetics of these fans. I think these fans look a lot better from around the back. Looking at the installation guide, you can see that there is detailed instructions with diagrams for all of the different sockets. Now looking at the accessories and mounting components. So we have a case badge, a splitter cable. This goes from PWM to a 3-pin connector and a PWM connector. So this splitter cable is to run both of the fans off your motherboard. As you can see, it's sleeved. We also have this 7-volt reducer with a Molex pass-through. This is for 3-pin and 4-pin. Some Deepcool thermal paste. All of the fan mounts, there's actually enough fan mounts here to mount 3 fans to the cooler, so you can mount an extra fan. And all of the mounting components. I'm going to take a close look at how this mounting system works shortly. Now looking at the cooler itself. The design is fairly standard. It has 8 6mm nickel-plated copper heat pipes. The base is full copper. It's also nickel-plated. The fins are made from aluminium, and you can see the shape of the fins where the air enters and exits the fin arrays. This is designed to improve performance, and it also improves the aesthetics. Looking down either side of the cooler, you can see the fins are sealed off. This also improves performance, and it gives the cooler a cleaner look. Both of these things we have seen before on other coolers. So it's designed to take up to 3 fans. And the overall dimensions without fans is 140 by 128 by 158 millimeters. The weight with fans is 1.378 kilograms. The compatible sockets are Intel sockets through from socket 775 to socket 2011, and AMD sockets, both of the AM2, AM3 sockets, and socket FM1. The construction is very good. Wherever you look on this cooler, the quality is excellent, and it's a great looking cooler. The base of the cold plate has a nice mirror finish, which is important for good contact and performance. I've now installed the fans, and it's time to get the Deepcool Assassin on the test bed. The fans install with wire mounts. It's very quick and easy, and we've seen these wire mounts previously on other CPU coolers. So the specifications of the test bed are the following. The test bed itself is a micro coolband Shadow 101. I'm running an Intel Core i7-3770K, Asus Sabertooth Z77, 8GB of G-Skill Ripjaws X 1600MHz 78724 1.6 volts. I'm currently running an NVIDIA Titan, but I'm actually just testing this for another build. You'll also see an AMD 7770 during the testing. I'm running a Corsair AX650, and for the boot drive, a Corsair Force 3 60GB SSD. I'm now in the process of installing the cooler, and the mounting system is probably in the middle compared to the other mounting systems I've used. So it's not the worst, but it's certainly not the best. A lot of big improvements could have been made. The quality is good. You're certainly not going to have problems with the components. The construction is good, but it just could have been streamlined and made a whole lot easier to use by connecting a lot of these components together in advance. The best way to judge a mounting system before you use it is how many components are there. And this mounting system just has too many components in it. On this side you have a bracket on either side, which is what the cooler itself mounts onto. You have spacers underneath those brackets. You have nuts on top of those brackets. It's all toolless, but there's also the option to use tools if you want to get things tighter, or if you can't undo something. It's always good to have that option. Then on the back you have the backplate. There's just one backplate for all of the sockets and pins with threads on the top of them that go through to the other side. So that's what the nuts mount onto. Now this is the best part of this design. You have these pieces of plastic that hold the pins in position and connect them to the backplate. I have seen this on other coolers. It just makes a mounting system so much easier to use. I've completed the installation, so the Deepcool Assassin is now up and running on the test bed. The installation took less than 5 minutes, so it wasn't too bad. Now I've mentioned some things that I don't like about the fans, but seeing the fans on the Deepcool Assassin and having the cooler installed, I can see why they went with the design choices, the chrome in the center of the fan and also the colors. It does fit, and the Deepcool Assassin looks good on the test bed. I've connected the fans to a fan controller, which I'm just using as a display so that you can see the fan RPMs. The 120mm fan is sitting around 1200 RPM. The 140mm fan is sitting around 1450 RPM. So looking at how well the Deepcool Assassin fits with this particular configuration, it's not the biggest twin tower design out there, but it is very wide. It actually ends up about 10 to 15 millimeters away from the graphics card. Now, I've already given you the dimensions of the cooler itself, but the full dimensions with the fans installed, so this includes the fans and fan mounts, is 144 millimeters wide, 160 millimeters high, 154 millimeters from the front to the back. That includes the width of the 120mm fan on the front of the cooler, and underneath the fins you have 43.2mm. So I'm using G-Skill Ripjaws X, which is approximately 37mm high from the top of the slot to the top of the memory, and as you can see, this cooler easily clears it by about 10mm. So that means that almost all high profile memory is going to fit under the Deepcool Assassin. because this memory is about halfway between low profile and high profile memory. On this particular motherboard, the 120mm fan covers all 4 of the memory slots, and the cooler itself covers the first memory slot. Now moving on to the test results. I'm going to test a number of different fan configurations on the Deepcool Assassin. So I'm going to start with the noise output results. All of these results were taken with the fans at 100%. So first of all, the stock fan configuration. So the noise output from the stock fan configuration, I would say that it's around 30 decibels, which is roughly the specifications of the 140mm fan. It's audible, but definitely tolerable. You know, it's definitely not loud. I'd say it's slightly louder than what I'm used to hearing from premium fans. So moving on to the next configuration I tested. The reason I tested this config was to see just how good the Deepcool fans actually are. I put them up against 2 premium fans with similar RPMs. So what I'm running here is 2 noise blocker fans, the PLPS 120mm fan and the PK2 140mm fan. The specifications of the PLPS: 1500 RPM, 1.833mm H2O, 58.86 CFM, and 24 decibels. That's the maximum specifications because it's a PWM fan. I am running the fans at 100% for all of this testing though, as I've mentioned. The specifications of the PK2 1200 RPM, 1.295mm H2O, 54.7 CFM, and 20 decibels. So now for the noise output results. This just goes to show how good the stock fans actually are, because I could only just notice that this fan config was slightly quieter than the stock fan config. To give you an idea, the loudest fan of these 2, the PLPS, is 24 decibels. For the third and final config, I added another noise blocker PLPS to the cooler. And I did this to find out, well, to give you an idea of the maximum performance of the Deepcool Assassin. So now for the noise output of this config. The noise output of this config was actually slightly louder than the noise output of the stock config. Now moving on to the temperature results. I'm going to include results from a number of different coolers, including the Noctua NHD14. The reason I'm using the NHD14 is because out of all of the CPU coolers I've tested, including most pre-built water cooling loops, the NHD14 has remained on top. So I always use it as a benchmark, and I always like to see if a new cooler can beat the records of the NHD14. As well as that, to place the Deepcool Assassin, I'm going to include results from the Cooler Master Sidon 240M and this custom water cooling loop. The specifications of this loop are the following. I'm running an EK Supremacy AlphaCool Nexus Monster 360mm radiator with Cougar 120mm fans, a Swiftech MCP35X, Bits Power Z-Tube 150, Mayhem's X1 UV Red coolant, Bits Power Black Sparkle fittings, and Primo Chill Advanced tubing. Okay, I have the temperature results up on the screen. The Deepcool Assassin results are on the left-hand side. You can see the 3 fan configurations. On the right-hand side, I have the Cooler Master Sidon 240M, custom water cooling loop, and Noctua NHD14 results. Now, I have stock clock results and overclock results. For the overclock, I was running the CPU at 4.4 GHz, 1.3 volts. For the idle test, I cold boot the system and let it idle for 30 minutes. For the load test, I run Prime 95 small FFT for 30 minutes. My results are an average of the CPU cores. For all of my temperature testing, I mathematically adjust my ambient temperature to 20 degrees Celsius. Now, I'm amazed at how well the Deepcool Assassin did. I must say I wasn't expecting it to do this well, just because it's a very stock standard cooler, nothing really stands out about it, and I've seen a lot of coolers do a lot worse than this. If you take a look at the NHD14 results, you can see that when I was running 3 fans on the Assassin, it actually beat the NHD14 in the overclocked load test by 2 degrees. I mean, that is 3 fans compared to 2 fans on the NHD14, but still, it's something I haven't seen before. And if you take a look at the results compared to the pre-built water cooling kit, it's just amazing. So some excellent results. It's now time for me to conclude this review, and I'm going to give the Deepcool Assassin an 8 out of 10. The only reason I'm taking points off is because this is the same design we've seen over and over again. There's nothing that really stands out about this cooler, and I just love to see manufacturers putting more into R&D, taking some risks. I mean, even if the designs are crazy and way out there, it's better than seeing the same thing over and over again. And manufacturers that listen to the community in this industry always do extremely well. So that's certainly something I'd love to see. There is just so many tweaks that could be made to this design that would massively improve it, and I just don't know why manufacturers aren't doing it. Copper fins, changing the shape of the fins for more surface area. I mean, there's a lot you can do with the cold plate, play around with different direct contact designs, and just coming up with different ways to install the fans. Some sort of quick release clip-on design where you can just slide in the fan and it clips into position. There is a lot you can do with this design, and that goes for every component. So that's the only reason I'm taking points off. Other than that, it's an excellent cooler. The results are just amazing, and that's really the most important thing. This cooler is right up there with the most high-end air coolers, and it's also going to beat a lot of pre-built water cooling kits. Now, you need to give a big thanks to Deepcool, who sent this product out for review. When manufacturers do that, it means that I can bring you more videos. That sums up this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and favorite if you want to see more.